Hey everybody, welcome back to The Way of Ramen. In today's video, we're going to be attempting to put together a bowl of Kumamoto style Tonkotsu Ramen. Now I say attempting because honestly, this bowl didn't come out nearly as good as I felt like it should have. Kumamoto ramen is a very garlicky, light tonkotsu ramen, which should be as amazing as it sounds. But my definition of a good bowl of ramen is where every single one of the components is working together to create an amazing experience. And in this bowl, everything just seemed to be fighting each other for attention. I'll try to point out the things that I think I did wrong as I go, and in the end I'm going to show you my second attempt at this bowl that came out a little bit better, but I still can't recommend you guys try this one. Not yet, not until I can at least figure out what I did wrong. Alright, I hope you guys are still on board. Let's get right into this one. So I did a lot of research on YouTube in preparation for making this bowl, and one of my favorite ramen YouTubers, Ouchimen TV, had a video where he made Kumamoto style ramen. I decided to copy the tare that he made in that video because I've never done a shio tare like this before. So one night in advance, I got some kombu soaking in some sake and let it sit out overnight to let some of the alcohol evaporate. The next morning, I put the pot on the stove and burned off some of the alcohol. And after about 10 minutes, I strained out the kombu. I added some mirin, some usukuchi shoyu, and some salt. This is Hawaiian salt that is made in the traditional way on the island where I live, but any kind of salt should be fine. I mixed everything together and let it cool down. When it cooled, I transferred it to another container for later. Now, through my research, I learned that Kumamoto ramen uses low hydration chu futomen noodles, or medium thickness noodles. The noodles that I usually have in my freezer are around 38% hydration, which is high hydration noodles, so I decided to make a new batch at 30%, which is the top threshold for low hydration noodles. I explained a lot of the science of making noodles in my previous noodle video, and I'll link that up in the top right or in the description, wherever, but basically for low hydration noodles, I need to use sodium carbonate kansui. I weighed out 300 grams of flour, so I'm going to need to do 3 grams of powdered kansui and 3 grams of salt, both at 1% of the total flour weight, and mix that into 90 grams of water for 30% of the flour weight. This will give me enough kansui to make a 30% hydration noodle. I did 30% hydration because anything lower gets really hard to do without an industrial noodle maker, and all I have is a pasta machine. Again, this is the same method I explained in my previous noodle video, so please check that out if you need some explanation of why I'm doing what I'm doing here. But basically, when you pour in the kansui, you want to hydrate as much of the flour as possible and avoid creating any big clumps of dough. Once the kansui is added, you can use your hands to simulate an industrial mixer and rub the dough between your fingers to distribute the kansui more evenly. Then just transfer the loose dough into a ziploc bag and let it rest as is for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, just put the bag in another bag and step on the dough to knead it into a nice sheet. Let that rest again for another 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, dust the dough with potato starch and cut it to fit your pasta machine. Roll it out and cut the dough into noodles. I'm going to put the noodles in a Ziploc bag and let them rest in the fridge for at least one more day before using. I have some pork bones here that I've been soaking for a few hours. The soaking step helps draw out a lot of the hemoglobin, and it helps keep the color of the final soup a little bit whiter. Get a clean pot of water on the stove and bring it to a boil, and transfer your rinsed pork bones into the pot and pre-boil them for about 20 minutes, skimming off any scum that floats to the surface. The research that I did also said Kumamoto Ramen balances out the pork with chicken and vegetables, so I'm also going to use a stewing in here. I'm going to blanch the chicken bones to get out any scum that might come out of them. You're going to rinse off your pork bones and remove any gross brown stuff that you can find attached to it. It's always a good practice to weigh out your bones for reference, so that's what I'm doing here. I ended up with about 500 grams of pork bones, and this is where I made my first big mistake. The chicken I broke down turned out to be 600 grams of chicken parts, and I didn't want the chicken to have to die for no reason, so I used it all. I threw all the bones and the chicken into an Instant Pot and covered it with just enough water, and then I let this cook on high pressure for 1 hour. After 1 hour, I did a quick release, and I gave everything a good stir and put it back on for another hour of high pressure cooking. And after that hour, the soup looked like this. I got it back up to a boil and then added some cabbage, garlic, and some green onion. And it was around this time that I tasted the soup for the first time and realized there was way too much damn chicken in there. So I tried to pull out as much of the chicken as I could to try to get the pork flavor to come back a little, but it was too late. I let the soup boil for another hour or so, and once it had the consistency that I was looking for, I strained out all the bones and put the soup into a separate pot. I did a quick blend with an immersion blender to emulsify the gelatin and the fat into the soup, and the final soup had the consistency I was going for, an assari paitan, if that's even a thing, but there was way too much chicken flavor. After that, I cooled the soup down and let it rest overnight in the fridge. The next day, the soup had firmed up into this porky chicken jello, which is exactly what I was looking for. In a video I had watched for research, I saw a restaurant serving Kumamoto Ramen that appeared to be using some sort of vegetable oil-based aroma oil, so I decided to garlic all the things and make a garlic aroma oil here too, and then use the garlic chips as a topping. Fry the garlic over low heat for about 20 minutes. I then strained out the garlic and saved the oil for the aroma oil. I removed as much of the excess oil as I could from the chips, and then I broke them up into little pieces using the suribachi pestle. This is the kuro-mayu that we made in the last video. I used a little bit for some other things, but I'm gonna heat this up so I can add it to the bowl. I scooped out the soup into a small pot and then heat that pot up. I should have skimmed off the fat here while it was still solid because this fat did not emulsify into the soup, and it's gonna end up making a gross skin at the top of the bowl. All that's left is to make a few toppings. I cut up some green onion and some chashu, and I heated the chashu in a toaster oven. Okay, it's finally time to make the bowl of Kumamoto Ramen. I added 2 tablespoons of tare and 1 tablespoon of garlic oil into the bowl. I cooked my 30% hydration noodles for 1 minute. That may have been slightly too long, maybe 45 seconds might have been a little bit better. I added 300 ml of soup to the bowl to start. Then I added in my noodles. At this point, when I was putting on my toppings, I realized I had completely forgotten to prep my kikurage wood ear mushrooms, which is a staple for Kumamoto Ramen. I instead tried to add 2 sheets of nori, but the nori was actually completely unnecessary, and I took them out halfway through eating because it really didn't match the bowl. And as you can see, not skimming the unemulsified soup came back to bite me in the ass, and it made that gross skin at the top of the soup. Having a fan blowing on the bowl to prevent the steam from hitting the camera also did not help. The first taste of this soup and the noodles, I thought I had nailed it, but the more I ate, the more I could taste all the flaws in the bowl. Everything was fighting for attention. The tare, the chicken, the garlic were all fighting each other the whole time. No harmony, which all led to it being not terrible, but just not great. So the next day I tried it again using the shoyu tare from my tori shoyu ramen bowl, and this one tasted a little bit better, but the garlic and chicken were still fighting. But at least I remembered the kikurage topping that day. Making good ramen is hard, and this bowl showed me I still have a lot to learn. Fortunately, the struggle is what I love the most. Thank you guys for watching, and please feel free to leave any tips in the comments if you see something I could do better next time. And speaking of getting better, I started a podcast where I interview people who are better than me at making ramen. So I just interviewed Mike Santanover, aka Ramen Lord, and we had a great 3-hour-long discussion on all things ramen. You can find the podcast on iTunes and Spotify, just search Way of Ramen Podcast, or check out wayoframen.com. Alright, that's it for this video. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace!